today, Rinpoche gave an excellent explanation of why Buddha Shakyamuni is the unexcelled teacher and the unexcelled knower. The Semsampa Gare? Tambo. Okay. Oh, Shugul, Gemma, okay. Okay. Two Chenrezig.
What the Shirage, what did that the Leshi would do by Yusung?
The Lama, yeah. Okay, so today we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's praise of dependent origination. And this text is actually a summary or an abbreviation of Lama Tsongkhapa's larger text, which is called The Essence of Eloquence. The Essence of Eloquence, or Leshin Nyingpo, is about 100 pages long, and it contains much more detailed information. But this text is said to be a summary of that larger text. And the larger text deals in its first part with the Chittamantra view, the mind-only school view. And then in later pages, it goes on to explain the two Madhyamika views, the Madhyamika Svatantrika and the Madhyamika Prasangika, or in English, the Middle Way Autonomy School, and then the Middle Way Consequence School. So it explains those three topics, the mind only, the Middle Way Autonomy School, and then explains the Middle Way Consequence School. So this praise of dependent origination is a summary of that text, The Essence of Eloquence. The Ganchen Kepi Sochen Tsongkhapa. Oh, Sheting. Lesso. Okay. Lesso. Then the Lamrim, the Lama Tsongkhapa, the Zonga Yomare. Gangisena the Kanchen Kepi Sochen Tsongkhapa, the Kakare. Shinte Suje. Okay. Okay. So we say that Tsongkhapa is the trailblazer of the sages of the land of snows. And the reason that we say that Lama Tsongkhapa is this trailblazer, like Nagarjuna and Lord Maitreya, is because of the topics of this Essence of Eloquence text.
The Chebala Sajini Rendo Sajini, what the Juno Judgment Abashi Drus, Judgment Abashi Drug and Rebarendua, Junus Andu Lumba Injire, Andu Lumba J.
The Yanja Suralang Rinpoche?
Juno Judgment Abashi Drus Rotakun, the Junus Andu Lumba Injire, Judgment Abashi Rukun Saint Jiro,
Drapa, Junu Jetsun Drapa.
Shidru,
okay, Shidru.
That was the tended to be done at the Machebala Sajini Digdua. He be said, Shibaja, you choose Dolani Tobi Ombola Tende Sumbi Gune Deba Sumbi Juseto was Sajini Dudua. Tobi Ombola Tende Sumbi Gune Debas Dambache Sumbi Jusentan Gawangwa. And then tended to Basungu Jusentan Shugulu Gawangwa. Ta Tambo Tobi Ombola Tende Sumbi Gune Debatala Tambo Chuje Jugundo Tembas Tambo the Chuju do Den Jiba Imbare Chuju Jugundo Tembas Chuba Jube Gune and then tended to be done that my Dudujin Dur Tembas. Then Niba Jiba Sheba
Less so.
Somba Dama Dudujin Tamal Ma Duma Timbare. Don't do a was. What they tumble de la son dozon. Yeah.
Tambo sum? Tambo chujegi gune dudemba dan jeba sheba.
Gune debas tambro. Tela saji son de undoa. Chuju gun do temba. Jeba sheba nibaje. Don't do a somba.
Don't do.
Don't do shugul ma da ma rujin ma dudujin son jat.
Okay, don't do. And then Tambo ewa ni gare.
Tambo ni drota. Tobi Ombola Tende Sumbi Gune Debas Tambache. Sumbi Jusentan Gawangwa Nibaje.
Reason. And Tambo this donda gare.
Tobi Ombola Tende Sumbi Gune Debas. Tobi Ombola Tende Sumbi Gune and Lama Zonghabe. Tobi Ombola Tende Sumbi Gune Debares Deba. Tende Sumba Jiraga Yabures. Shaja Tobe, Shajaman Buddha, Tende Sumba Jiraga Yabures and Lama Zonghabe Togundus, Chuba Jogundus, Deba Tambaje, and the Tende Deba Tungu Jusentan Gawangwa.
Okay.
Nibaje.
Presentation praise. All right, so we have, when we look at the praise of dependent origination, we are using a commentary by an Amdo scholar. Amdo's scholar's name is Junu Jetsun Drapa Shidrup. Junu is the part of Amdo that he's from. Jetsun Drapa Kongitsen.
Jetsun Drapa Shidrup.
Okay, so his actual name then would be Jetsun Drapa Shidrup. So Junu is the place in Amdo he's from, and then Jetsun Drapa Shidrup would be his name. So he wrote this very excellent commentary on Lama Tsongkhapa's praise of dependent origination. So it begins stating that there are two commentaries. The first commentary is, first section of the outline is a presentation of the praise, and then the second section is the reason for and the virtuous dedication. And then, so these are the first two categories. And under that first category, it says that there are three categories that will be entertained. First is the expression of worship, the expression of homage. Second category is the more expansive explanation of this, an expanded explanation of this material. And then Dundua is the abbreviation or a summary of the material contained. So we have first the expression of worship or expression of homage, then the expanded explanation, and then a summary or an abbreviation. So these are the three categories that we begin with. And this is under that first category, which is the presentation of praise. I'd like to get a better translation of that, but I just don't have it at this moment. But we'll call it that for now, presentation of praise. Tambul Asum. So there's three categories under that presentation of praise.
the tended to be sit shows na kanshi zichi sonwa yi chen dan tumbala na me jawa tenjin jeba jung zishin do batalan dus what the choba jubu gune tended to be tunda ma du do temporis zishin do batalan dus
The Dodemba.
do tempo gune and choba jubu gun do tempo to what there is that
Okay.
kanshi zichi sonwa yi chen dan tumbala na me kanla dosa yu shajamun buddha
Lesso.
Jawa Tenzin Japan Jung Zishin Toba Telandu Choba Joba Imbarawata
Lesso.
Choba Joba Rendua Choba Jogune Tendi Tibi Tandama Dudu Jin Sumbares Duru Tembas.
Oh, Lesso. Okay, so in this first section, we find the expression of worship, and then it's not promise to compose, but it's the presentation of topic. So it's an expression of worship and presentation of topic. So it reads as follows: He who speaks on the basis of seeing, this makes him a knower and a teacher unexcelled. I bow to you, O conqueror, you who saw dependent origination and taught it. So we have this expression of worship, and then the topic, the presentation of topic, and then we have dependent origination and taught it. Dixon.
Wata Kanshi Zishin Songwa Yi Chenta Toba Lana Me Jawa Tenzin Japan Jung Zishin Toba Telandu Tegi Tunda Tekarasin Tatanama Tin Jabat Hiong Mariba.
Lesso.
And Kanshi Zishin Shesu Shulaga Jigi Tundes Kanshi Zishin Songwa Shesu Shulaga Jigi Sijirwa Shulaga Jigi Choba Jubu Do Tembateres Ne Jigi Tunde Ti Tunda Karasana Tunne Tendi Kanshis Kanshi Zishins Tendi Kanshi Chetawa Jino Ngosung to Zishins Tendi and Chukala Tendi Roa Jujela Tebi Tendi Tang Dajila Tebi Tendi and Duji Yina Jujela Tebi Tendi im Chap and Dajila Tebi Tendi Sana Duji Don Dumashi Samal Kogruta and Duji Don Dumashi Takante Taba Yina Tendi im Chagre Mataba Yina Tendi im Chanogrota and Mataba Rangi Jujela Tendi Ruba Jujela Tendi Ruba and Taba to Rangi Dajila Tendi Rubas Dajila Tendi Ruba Ta Jujela Tendi Tendi Tang Dajila Tendi Tendi Mosun Jandire Jujela Tendi Tendi Yena Dajila Tendi Tendi Imcho Dajila Tendi Tendi Yena Jujela Tendi Tendi Macho Dumashi Naka Juj Goden Chujins what was Jan Disamarba
Dixon. Okay.
Yeah, or the Jiju Kaliga.
Lesso. So what is the meaning of this? So it reads, he who speaks on the basis of seeing, this makes him a knower and a teacher unexcelled. I bow to you, O conqueror, you who taught saw dependent origination and taught it. So here, this is speaking of Buddha Shakyamuni. And Buddha Shakyamuni had a direct prime or valid cognition of dependent origination. So he had the direct experience of this dependent origination, and then taught dependent origination. So what is dependent origination? The Rinpoche, the Tambo, the Dendel, the Ni, Dajen Dan, the Judan Jen, then Yene, the Tambo Chirangari Sumpare, the Dendel Gare, the Chu Tamche Demba, the Drupa Lapsung, Tambo Gari Lapsung, a Jason Rinpoche.
Jujela Tendi Tendi the Dajila Tendi Tendi New York. Tendi Juduna, Tendi Michagro. Jujela Tendi Tendi and Tabak Tendi the York. Jujela Tendi Tendi and the Rang Jula Tendi Truba. Rang Dujigal Rang Jula Jibber, Jula Tendi Truba. Jula Tendi Tendis. That Dajila Tendi Tendis and 나 수수 다정 가서 추수 강바를 자자바이나 추수 강바의 샤동을 샤동 로당 수지 그걸로 네 강바가 다지로다 저도 와야 되고 다지로 수지를 때는 강바스 자고로다 강바스야 네 강바가 수지를 때네 네 강바스 자고로 네 다지를 때문에 된지 는 가서 뭘 찾아봐이나 고당 라바당 강바당 또 초발을 되는 맛을 따고로 펑펑하고 거놀 되는 답이 제보 가자기 체니스 펑펑하고 다지 말베 다지를 되는 는 맛을 따고로다 오늘 가자스 따고 말베 다지를 되면 되는서 어디서 말베.
Okay, so when we look at this word dependent arising, there are two different categories of dependent arising. First, there's the dependent arising, which is causes and conditions. And then there is a dependent arising of establishment. I'm going to look for a better way to translate that. But there doesn't seem to be one that I've seen. So one is just establishment, and one, and I'll explain it, one is causes and conditions. So when we look at the dependent origination, which refers to causes and conditions, we say that this is anything that is a compound, anything that depends on causes falls under this category. So for instance, a person. So the definition of person is a being imputed on any among the five aggregates. So this is the definition of person. And person, when we say, is a person truly established, we say no, he or she dependently originates. And we can show the dependent origination of causes and conditions because we have all of the comings together. The Rinpoche, Dajen la du the Kamba, the Kansak, the
펑펑하고 거론할 땐 답이 제보
the
말베.
Dajen.
펑펑하 다지로.
Okay. So
펑펑하 다지래. 다지 펑펑하를 뛰네. 는 가자스 미다고.
Lesso.
가자 펑펑하고 거론할 땐 답이 제보 가자가 체니스.
Lesso.
캄바가 그때는 캄바가 수질을 때는 캄바 다고도. then 아주 건강을 잡은 당시.
Then the Judan Chen, the Chugari Sumpre.
줄을 때문에 담다바도 랑 줄을 때는 책으로. 줄을 때는 제바 이상 줄을 때는 주버로.
Okay.
주진을 때문에
Okay. So I was just looking to see if I'd forgotten an example Rinpoche gave of the causes and conditions, but let me just go back and just correct myself. The person being imputed on, a person is translated as a being imputed on any among the five aggregates. So when we look at the two kinds of dependent origination of causes and conditions, and dependent origination of establishment, I just spoke mistakenly and said that was causes and conditions. But the example is of establishment. So when we look at all of the parts that come together that make up person, that coming together, that establishment of person, that then is nominally designated as person, is this second type of dependent origination, the dependent origination of establishment or of a compound, if you will, dependent origination of compound. So this type of dependent origination also, if we look at the name house, house does not exist inherently. House merely comes into existence by a collection of parts that come together. For instance, the wood and the paint and all of the foundations and so forth come together, and then they are nominally designated as house. So these are examples of this dependent origination of establishment or compound, where these things come together and then are named as this or that. But there is no inherently existent, as given in the examples, house or inherently existent person that is separate from that collection. So this is that dependent origination which is applies to all phenomena. So this dependent origination of establishment or a compound applies to even permanent phenomenon. So the dependent origination of causes and conditions only refers to phenomena that is caused or compound phenomenon. Whereas the other type of dependent origination of establishment or compound, refers to all established bases. So all established bases, all phenomena, all impermanent phenomena, as well as all permanent phenomena, has this second type of dependent origination. Only impermanent phenomena has the dependent origination of causes and conditions. So when we compare these two types of dependent origination, the dependent origination of establishment or compound and the dependent origination of causes and conditions, we say that we come up with three possibilities. Because if it is a dependent origination of causes and conditions, it is necessarily a dependent origination of establishment or compound. But if it is a dependent origination of establishment or compound, it is not necessarily a dependent origination of causes and conditions. And if we say posit that which is a dependent origination of establishment, or compound, but not dependent origination of causes and conditions, we would say uncompounded space. Uncompounded space is an example of something which is a dependent origination of establishment or compound, but not dependent origination of causes and conditions, because it's a permanent phenomenon. It's not a compound. It's not impermanent. Therefore, it is uncaused and only falls into that first category. So we find the Nika Yimba. Gare, Nika Yimba.
Nika Yimba Goten Jandiro. Jujin le Tibetan
Dang.
Dajin. Duji Kanga Jandiro, Kama Jandiro.
Okay, so if we look for something which is both, we could say a house. A house is both dependent origination of causes and conditions, as well as dependent origination of establishment. And we used it as a translator's note as an example for the dependent origination of establishment. And then it's caused. It comes into being through causes and conditions. So it falls into that other category as well. And then something which is neither Nika Mayimbimu.
Nika Mayimbimu Ramonja Jandiro. Ramora. Dendi in the Yogura, Ramura Yomaro.
Ale, Dendel Yingu.
Dendi in the Yoba Yingure.
Okay, so in something which is neither is a rabbit with horns. And Rinpoche said that in order for something to be dependent origination, it has to be an existent. And as a note, there's a big debate about if you can make a picture of it in your mind of a rabbit with horns. So there's a debate about that, but Rinpoche said within dependent origination, what it establishes is necessarily an existent. So we can say something which is neither dependent origination of causes and conditions or dependent origination of establishment. We can say rabbit with horns. It's neither one of those two types of dependent origination. So both of those require an existent, just as a qualifying principle. So let me just make sure I have all of the points that Rinpoche made. There were a lot about dependent origination. Diksung Yetsa.
Shajatuba, ne Tenduji Tengaji, and then Gonsun to Zibigone, Chemalana Mebares, Tendi to what the Shaj Namamadu, what the Shiruba to Tendi Sungu Major. Tendi Jetawaji, the Gonsun to Zibichan, and Chemalana Mebares, Till Labi Chemba Yumares, Chemalana Mebatans.
Less so.
Ne suju ziba na jen le sumba yinza temba la na me baris temba la na me ba tende rang ngon to ziba na jen dure jenda le sumba yinza temba la na me baris temba jenda le chue temba yinza temba la na me ba ja jins te dar jabi jawaten jin treban jongwa zijin do batala dus te dar jabi ne jawaten jin treban jongwa tela jedani chembe zishin domba ne tendi ganji rang ngosung zi ne jenla domba tela ne duba cha chawa choba joba res ta
The Rinpoche, the delp charan the dondagare gangin the kanga the NGK zu kali kabudu the delpa kanga tanda zu zuna
다 간데 샤자 도바 도와데 덤발라나 쳔발라나 메바다 덤발라나 메바레스 쳔발라나 메바 임 주센 가르스나
lesa
댄디 치다와지 동고송도 지바 인자 쳔발라나 메바레스
leso
덤발라나 메바스나 댄디 치다와지 지바 나지 두자 젠달 덤바 인자 덤발라나 메바레스
the yanjursurana
댄디 수수 쳔바 나지
us
두자 젠달 송고
kona
덤바
okay only one two Chenrezig Rinpoche the sama zugu only one who then the dixon
덤발라나 메바
dopa lana
샤진 데들 자비 땡진 저번 중 안에 지신 동바 틀라두스 마두두진 중도와 샤자 두베 땡진 저번 중 제도와지는 것도 지 은두제 젠달 동바 틀라 라마 중거베 샤세버도 쳐버줘버려
leso
세버데 컴바 담보니지 네 여태 듣던 댐비 두용어 중와스 간지 지진 송와이 쳇도 담발라나면서 되게 치니지 쳐버줘서 유동어 중거레스 샤자문도 보다 샤마니지 여태 되지 덤발라 떼바오스 저한테 이제 봐 주세신도 같은 주세야 되게 네 대지 저번 와서 연대 됐던 때에 네 덤발들 떼바레스 떼바 제바지도 두바니 송도다
gamba tambo ni ki yunten the yanjursurana that's gamba
간지 제신 송와이 쳇도 떼발라나면 송도 간라 떼바 쳐바 줘서 유 샤자 두바도 원종 바레스다 간지 제신 송와이 쳇도 떼발라나면스 샤자만 보다 원종 바레스다
leso
여한테
ni
이제 봐 제신 두바 틀란두스 샤자 두바레 쳐바 줘바레 샤세와레 네 구빈도
ale
바레스
shima ni yunten de ale okay two chena I praise these two I see so Rinpoche is going through this word by word commentary and then giving his own commentary, and I just said it's difficult, just as I'm translating what I said to him, it's difficult to translate every single word because I'd have to translate the commentary as well as his commentary, so I just really need a summary of his commentary of what this commentary is saying in order to really do this. So that's what we were talking about. We look at this. So why is, it says here that Buddha Shakyamuni is the teacher unexcelled. Why is he the highest teacher? Why is he the highest knower? What gives Buddha Shakyamuni these qualities? And then why is Lama Tsongkhapa choosing to praise Buddha Shakyamuni for these things? The reason is that, first of all, in terms of knowing, Buddha Shakyamuni had a direct, valid cognition of dependent origination. He is the only teacher who has had that direct, valid cognition of dependent origination, and in terms of teaching, is the only one who is then able to teach this direct experience of dependent origination, because he is the one who had it. Because Buddha Shakyamuni had this direct perception of dependent origination, it says, he who speaks on the basis of seeing. This basis of seeing is referring to direct, valid cognition, seeing dependent origination. So this makes him a knower, the highest knower, because he's had direct, valid cognition. There's no higher cognition than direct, valid cognition, which he has had of dependent origination. And then because he speaks of this from that basis, his teaching is unexcelled. There is no higher teaching. So this is what Lama Tsongkhapa says. That it's because of these two so it says, because of these two excellent qualities, that Buddha Shakyamuni possesses, this ability of knowing, this knowing as well as teaching, that this praise has been set forth by Lama Tsongkhapa. So Lama Tsongkhapa is saying that in the commentary, Junu Jetsun Drapa Shidrup is saying Lama Tsongkhapa is praising Buddha Shakyamuni because of these two things: his quality of knowing, which is direct perception of dependent origination, and teaching. So this is what has been set forth here. And just going back to the two types of dependent arising, where I chose to use those words, they're actually correct. And the Prasangikas argue, actually, whether it should be called dependent arising, which is an arising, or arisal, or arising and establishment. So I was using kind of establishment, and that's the more liked term by the consequent school. Dependent origination of establishment. But there's a problem with that word too a little bit, but I think that's what I'm going to go with from here on in looking at this commentary here, where they're the grammarians break down the word in Sanskrit and according to the schools, and they show how, just using the word arising isn't enough. You have to have it established also. It might go on to say because it has to exist, but I can't read all of it. But it's pointed out there. So we're going to use dependent origination of causes and conditions and dependent origination of establishment. So we're going to use it a lot. So I just wanted to come up with a lexicon from here for anyone watching. Okay, Digsun Rinpoche.
다 주제주군도 대바 차네 니바 제바 쉐바드레 니바 제바 쉐발라 니바 제바 쉐발 twebi jusentan tweba ngun sajenyere doa 제바 쉐바들라.
Okay, so now we have the section. Now we have the expanded explanation. So we have that expression of worship section, and then it goes on to the expanded explanation. So now we begin the expanded explanation. Nipa dupi jip jutsen dang dupa ngu. Okay, so we have then here now the second category, which is the expanded explanation. We have the reason for the praise, and then the actual praise. So those are the two categories: reason for praise and actual praise. I wonder if that's identification or actual. Okay, either way, it's fine. Reason for praise and actual praise.
니바 twebi jusen tambula ni tende sheba tenbi nyembu tembas tenjin de banjuwa sheba de shajaman buda ke tenbi nyembu tembas tambuche tende jukune tweba khamba us tende jukune tweba de tweba ganan tende sumugun tweba de ashu tres tenbi nan tende tweba dan shero nan tende sheba ni jene tan jayung bu judu ur de bal de marba tende jukune tweba khamba us tende
Tambo donagare. Tambo the denda sheba dembi
nimbo. Tembi nimbo temba. Tenjin de banjuwa sheba de shajaman mudagi tembi hibres temba de lungi temba de tubi temba ni yo marbe. Lungi temba. Longchu denu su chenye da tubi temba la sun jane des denu su tubi lungi temba de tubi temba.
Leso.
O de tembi hibres da tende sun de tembi hibo.
Okay, so when there are two categories, okay, so when we get to the first, which is the reason for praise, there are two categories. The first category is the explanation of dependent origination is the essence of the truth, or the essence of, we'll say truth, is the essence of the truth. And then the second category, why it's the best thing to praise, why dependent origination is the highest or the best thing that one can praise. So when we look at truth, we have scriptural truth and realizational truth. You can also translate it as doctrine. So maybe that's better. We'll go back. If I use doctrine in the first one, why the dependent origination is the essence of the doctrine. So essence of the truth is, I think, a little more abstract. So essence of the doctrine and why it's the best praise. So these are the two categories. Under the first category, reason for praise. Digsum.
That tender some temple him temple to the Maris, Jiden go back in ba, tea zaw maride, Kanji Tony Taduba, tangent of Johnson, the solo on them by ye, tangent of John Lang, church temple neto, Chetakun to Chumin Joros, what the gay tender some temple him.
Logo.
What did you do? Then I need to heal.
Okay, so now we'll read the next two stanzas in the root text. So the commentary says that there are those two categories of the first category, the reason for praise, and then the first category, which is the dependent origination being the essence of the doctrine, begins here. Whatever degenerations there are in the world, the root of all these is ignorance. You taught that it is dependent origination, the seeing of which will undo this ignorance. So how can an intelligent person not comprehend that this path of dependent origination is the essential point of your teaching?
That then what the Jiden Goba Jenny zaw married the Jiden Goba. She so Chiji Song de Duanesa. Chiji Nis and Chijil, Chijil, some Shulka near Chiji Murwa. Jidin Goba she so Chisu Jiba Nisong de Ti Duanda Garasana Jidin Jaga Nachi Suji, Junsha Suji, Guba Jenny Yoba. Ti Guba Jenny Yoba, Ti Zawa Tatuba, Chudan Kanza Rajiji, Tubanji Denziji, Mariba Jate, Tendiji Chuni Samo, Kaji Gonsun to Tonate, Tetubi Mariba de Duba, Ju na Mariba de Ponyu, Tasu, Jayu, Tenjin Jabanjuan. Sonsos. What is a good what that and what did the Kasure?
Okay.
Jidena, Jidena was Tangaruso, what the Jidena and the Mayena, the Laina, that Deluson down, and then Nason to Kangalo, Chi doing, Gai doing, Nai doing, Chi doing to the other. Chigasuji, Junsha Suju, Gubas, and not called the Guba, Jenny Yoba, the Suki Zawa, the Carreras, not Zawa, Julatin Jay, Jay Zawa, the Shosana, Ti Zawa Tatubas, Cheganachi Tag, the Ku, Tendu and La Junior, Zawa Tuma Mariba Jau Marbe, what the lady reta. Ti Zawa Tatuba, Chudan Kanza Rajiji, Tubanzimbi. Denziji Mariba Jates and Tending La Junior Ku Zawade and Chudan Kazak Debatu Denzin Yagarota. Tending La Junior Tuma Mariba. What the Jibarindota?
Then Chudzim, Dan Kansaki Zim.
That choosing Kanza Maimi Chutul Chulogreta. Kanza Kanzaji. Kanza Rangon Ruan Kanzak dances. Kanza Maimbi. Chud never to was with the Chuji dancing. Chuji dancing. What the Kazak dancing, the Chuji dancing, but and then what the Ku Zawa is. To get Taji Zawa to what the radio is. Kazak dancing, the Chuji dancing, Jushebala Dene, Jushebala Dene, Lesa, Nyomuchi, Tion call the Kune, what the Dunga do there is. What's all deja vu wanted
the younger the Dazin La Dene Lesa? the understanding tama
ngara on the one zingaro
Okay, ngara on the
ngara
zimba.
on the one then and le da nyu mu che umar
Okay, so we'll do.
de won ge do gen yong do ta
Let's
what is more that chuji da do one zimba then nyu mu che le za ne do gen yong do go te do gen zawa do kan sa ge dan ni ta chuji da ni de res
Let's so. Dixon?
what is more that ka ye ju
So it says, whatever degenerations there are in the world, so whatever negativities, whatever sources of trouble. So we look at the various systems, if whether one is a human or one is a god or is in any of the three lower realms of cyclic existence or the higher realms of cyclic existence, where Rinpoche, the Tambo Chiran, the Jeka the Dugnyo, Yene the Dundru Sum, Dugnyo, Zukam, Zumekam.
Meta, and then do canton, Zukanton, Zumekan, Sungalo doing a yodro.
Jeka Nache Dugnyo,
Chi doing a guy doing and then Chi doing a guy doing a euro, guy doing Chi doing a yodro. And then Nessun Parota, Ti Zawado de Kaza the Chuji dancing the race.
Then the Zumekam, Jeka Nache Dugnyo Yerube.
Chi doing a euro, guy doing a euro.
Okay, two chena.
Zumekan Shin Malion.
Okay, two chena. They need troop, my troop. Okay, so I just wanted to check something. I didn't want to incorrectly state something. So in all of the different realms of cyclic existence, whether they are the lower realms, three lower realms of the hell, hungry, ghost, and animal, or the higher realms of cyclic existence, it does not matter whether it are the three lower or the three higher. All have to experience the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death. So all of these are experienced. So what is the reason for this experience? What is the cause of these types of various sufferings? What are the causes of these degenerations there are in the world? So whatever world one is abiding in, we're humans. So what are the causes? A lot of translations write trouble. Whatever troubles there are in the world, problems it's translated as a lot. So this degeneration can sometimes lead into other kind of ideas of what it means, but it's just troubles, problems. So whatever trouble there are in the world, so birth, aging, sickness, and death, these all are caused by ignorance. So the root of all these is ignorance. So when we look at the 12 links of dependent origination, we find that the first link, which starts all of the process of cyclic existence off, is immutable ignorance. So this is the first link. And when we look at ignorance, and we can divide it into two different types of grasping at phenomena as being truly established, and grasping at person as being truly established. And so this is right in the commentary, with Rinpoche's commentary. So when we look at both the grasping at phenomena as being inherently existent and grasping at person as being inherently existent, we find that these two are really the root of cyclic existence. And when we look at the phenomena, grasping at phenomena as being inherently existent, this is anything which isn't person. And person, grasping at person as being inherently existent, is anything that's person and grasping at that. So this covers everything. So it's this grasping which is the root of cyclic existence. So based on this grasping at the I as being inherently existent, we have afflictions that arise. And then from the arisal of the afflictions, we then react. We accumulate karma. And then this karma causes our suffering. So it's at the root of this process of suffering, the root of the degeneration or problems, we find the grasping at inherent existent, the grasping at phenomena as being inherently existent, and grasping at person as being inherently existent. Karma chitendo.
Oh yeah.
The name Rinpoche, the Triwa, the. Okay, so we'll take a break here. There's just one small part that I just want to ask Rinpoche about, and I can do that at break. So we'll take a break here, and we'll be right back. Dixon. Rinpoche, the Geshe, the Lama Sungang in Sin. Okay. So then it goes on to say, Buddha, so it says, Buddha Shakyamuni had a direct valid cognition of dependent origination. So it says, you taught that it is dependent origination, the seeing of which will undo this ignorance. So here it's saying that this dependent origination, which there has been a direct perception of, is said to be what allows one to abandon ignorance. It is what actually eradicates ignorance. And therefore, because it eradicates ignorance, it is said to be the king of all those things that eradicate ignorance. Or the king of dependent origination is the king of methods to eradicate ignorance. So I didn't finish that before break. So I think that is everything. So we have the two kinds of the grasping at phenomena and person as being truly established. That's it. Dixon, Kanga Lapsa. Okay, that's good. Gola, okay. Raso. Lesso. Lesso. Tapa. Damepa. Droa. Yoa droa. Lesso. Then the J Dendel Yimbichir. Okay, Tuchena. So we find in the root wisdom text by Nagarjuna this expression of worship in a similar way. So I know we passed that, but Rinpoche is just starting here. He said, so we find a similar sentiment. We find the 8 topics are presented, and their inherent existence is negated. So we find the 8 topics where we show the dependent origination of these 8 topics in the root wisdom text. So it says, I prostrate to the perfect Buddha, the best of all teachers, who taught that which is dependent origination is without cessation, without arising, without annihilation, without permanence, without coming, without going, without distinction, without identity, and peaceful, free from fabrication. So this is the beginning of Nagarjuna's root wisdom text, and it's the expression of worship from the Tsawa Sherab. Dixon.
Tantan de Maribanes, Tizo Maritis, Maribade, der Maribane, Nata Ngao Nyabi, Nyabasu Kanzatan, Churajin Jubanzimbi, Danzishila, Jude, and Danzishila Jujin, Tendai, Maribate, Yamu, Gentaji, Zawa Des.
It's Gurum, chick. The Kabir.
Der Mariban.
Ngamas Tonson.
The Maribanes, the Mariba.
Mariba de Pombe. De Mariba de Ngadangao. Okay, two chena. Going at Mipachi. Good.
Nasan Ziba.
Less so.
Happy Kaza dance,
Less so.
Kazaka dancing. Tene Namai Kaza Maibichu Rajinchi Juban Zimbi. Dancing Shila Jugres, Tiza Maris, Maribato, Deja Gures.
Less so.
Kazaka dancing, Chuji dancing, Jagures.
Less so.
Tenda Maribate, Nyamu Jena Zawa dance, Maribate, what the Deja Condola Subinoma, but Tanji Zawares.
Less so.
Zawa Yende, Oman Jubales, Nyamu Juna Malin Jizula, Tali Shon, Louis Ton, Tali Shon, Shetans, Tali Shon, Louis Ton, Dan and the to do Shene, Nanjuba Dan Gobashes, Oman Jubal, Oman Jubal. Nyamu Jana Malin Jizulas, Nyamu Batan,
Chisudawa.
Nyamu Batan, Nyamu Bijun, Chaganachi Dungela Subatuzukolo,
Less so.
Nyamu Bijun, Nyamu Ba, and Kazak Desha Condola Subatuz Nyamuro.
Less so.
Jun de what the teen jebo, Chi Dunga, Gai Dunga, Nai Dungela Suba, Chaganachi Dungela Subatuz Jun is Nyamu Juna, Maluba, Nyamu Jena Malinji Sula, Tali Shon, Louis Tonjude, Nyamu Bat Nyamu Bijun, Chaganachi Dungela Subatuz Tanji, Zawa de, Toma Maribares, Narangon Ruban Zebatan, the Chut Debatruban Denzilla de Shon Yores, Yamujana Malinji Sola, Tali Shon, Louis Tonjude, Tetabina Sute, Sheba Jene, Dan Di Yud Tushene, Rangon Rubat Debatruba de, Danzi Yud Tushene, Nanjuba Dan Gobashes, Nanjuba Gobade, Kazak Dat Rubat, Church Dat Rubat Gogures.
Less so.
Kazak Damet, the church Damet Tubachi.
Dixon?
Yeah.
The indicate Kangalatu.
What did you do?
Okay, so what is this ignorance? The ignorance is, so now I'm reading pretty much directly from the commentary, and then I'll add Rinpoche's commentary. I don't know how to divide this because I won't be able to do it. So this is directly from the commentary. So it's this ignorance is the grasping at myself and mine, as well as all phenomena as being inherently existent. So it is this grasping, first in terms of person, of I and mine, and in terms of all other things, all other phenomenon, and then this grasping at inherent existence. So this is said to be the root of all of the afflictions and ignorance. So we say that this is what ignorance is referring to. So all of the negativities come from this. So it says in the Chandrakirti's entrance to the middle way, we find a quote that says, "Perceiving that all faults and all afflictions flow from the idea of the transitory composite, and knowing that its focus is the very self, this self is what the yogi will disprove." So all the faults and afflictions, so the afflictions of attachment, hatred, and so forth, and faults, so birth, aging, sickness, death. So all of the faults and all of the afflictions are brought about, it said, from the idea of the transitory composite, or the view. It's also called the view of the transitory collection. So the view of the transitory collection's focus is is this I being inherently existent. And that's what the yogis disprove. So a yogi, an adept, will negate this mistaken idea because all faults and all afflictions come from it. So it's saying that the root of all faults, the root of all afflictions is this grasping at things as being inherently existent, grasping at the I as being inherently existent, grasping at phenomena as being inherently existent or truly established. So this is what it says the yogis negate. Maripa. Digsun Rinpoche.
다 난된 로지 정도.
Lesso.
난된래 뜨문에 비싸와 데스. 뜨문라 뜨고나니라 뭐 말이바도 렌델라 뭐 말이바니가 난다는데 뜨고나니라 뭐 말이바니 그래. 뜨고나니라 뭐 말이바 가자가 단지다 취지 단지 워든을 잔데 고지래.
Then we have a quote from Dharmakirti. From Dharmakirti's Pramanavartika Karika, it says, the root Nyepi the Tserna Nye Enji the Nyezugu.
뜨문에 비싸와 데스. 뜨문에 비싸와 송도 연락 주니나 도마 말이바도 그 저와 말배.
Lesso.
네바도 와데 그 동에도 네바래도 네바. 뜨무 말이바데.
Nyepa Koidungyal Chiba?
그 동에.
Okay.
네, 녀목주로 녀목주나 말리지도라스.
Okay. So in the it says I'm just trying. There's a word Nyepa. I'm trying to was getting the meaning of. And Rinpoche said it's the suffering of cyclic existence is what this word means. So it says here, ignorance is the root of the suffering of cyclic existence. So we find the same point made in the Pramanavartika Karika. It's very short. There's only 3 words here, but it says ignorance, suffering of cyclic existence. I'll look it up in the root. And it might even be abides. I think that the Nyepa sometimes means abides, and it probably means abiding in cyclic existence. So the root of suffering of cyclic existence is, or the root of abiding is ignorance. Digsun Rinpoche.
다 올마시브도 셔 마리바네스 렌델라 모 마리바다.
I forgot.
테코나니라 모 마리바니 손비 데네 셔마인라스 렌델라 테코나니라 모 마리바 렌델라 모 마리바니 그나네 셔마 워 테코나니라 모 마리바디 자그레스
Lesso.
렌델라 모 마리바 자그마레스.
So one thing I forgot from before, but then that text goes on to repeat, is that when we're looking at the different types of ignorance, there are 2 kinds of ignorance. There is ignorance of karma and its results, and ignorance of the nature of reality. And when we look at a specific example, it's referring to ignorance of the nature of reality, that type of ignorance. And when we look at the categories of the ignorance of nature of reality, we have grasping at phenomena as being inherently existent and grasping at person.
제 마리바라 렌델라 모 마리바다 테코나니라 모비 마리바 니 손비 데네 셔마인라스 테코나니라 모 마리바 야고레스
Lapsa.
테코나니라 모 마리바다 차와다 라바니 요레스.
So when we look at this type of ignorance, which is ignorance of the nature of reality, there are 2 categories, subtle and coarse and subtle. Okay. So we're speaking of chawa, the subtle. So what do we mean by coarse and subtle ignorance of the nature of reality? So when we look at grasping, there is natural grasping and it's learned, what is it called? Natural, and it's like learned. I got just blanking out. I'll remember it. So there's the natural grasping, and then there's learned grasping. And then there's coarse and subtle.
Kuntasana, Jusen Latene, Dabatuan Zibu, the Kunta Lover, Kunta. What did that then? Oma Tanju Jena, Kunta, there was Rajubula, you are, Sensabula, you are, Dodibula, you are, Shedama, you are, Shirubula, you are. And Chuna, and Rajuba, Chuna Rangon Juba, you love. Oma Tanju Tana, Rajubi, Chuna Rangon Juba in the Jutubi, Jutuna Rangon Juba in Charles.
Shidru.
Jidu ina Rangon Juba in Charles, Rajuba. Deba Maduba in Lagre, Rangon Juba in Ladre. And what did Rangon Juba, there was the Jusen Latin, Deba Juba Jusen Latin, Juba Iza, Kunta de Rajubi Juliares, Sazambe. And Chuk Dabatuba in Lagre. Chinese one, Kunta Yawan Yondu. And what the Chinese one, what the Chinese one log, that Chinese one, Sazambe, and Yawansana Mataba Lagre, Mataba. Yawan Yondu and Tony Lagre. Kunta Sana, and Yebi Kunta, the Maybe Kunta Yorota. Tuni mai tabat kunta lagre, mebal tab kunta lagre.
Okay, the Gemma, the Dagu,
Okay,
Tanda Zutu Gumane. Rinpoche is going through categories of the mind-only school. Right now, we're just going to have to table it. I just don't have the vocabulary to connect to it at this moment. I've never been taught it, so I don't have any way to produce it. But I'll be able to get more clear on it, and I just don't want to half translate something.
Are you saying categories of the mind-only view of dependent origination?
I'm sorry?
Are you saying categories of the mind-only view of dependent origination?
Rinpoche was going through the categories of the mind-only view, comparing it to the autonomy view, and comparing it to the prasangika view. And he was using different categories, and I just didn't know, I don't know the vocabulary, so I'm not able to translate it without looking it up right now. Without confusing it, it'll just confuse it more because I don't have the vocabulary. When we're talking about the subtle, the coarse and the subtle ignorance of the nature of reality, and now I just got totally lost. The coarse and subtle ignorance of the nature of reality, then we have this natural and we have learned. The learned one is dependent upon reasoning, dependent upon signs, establishing things as being truly established by some mistaken form of thinking. And then the natural one does not require this thinking in order to arrive at it. And then Rinpoche was saying that when we look at the categories of these two, the natural and the learned, they're differing views of mind-only and autonomy and prasangika, and Rinpoche was listing all of these different categories of which are similar and dissimilar, and I just didn't have the vocabulary. So that's where we were at, and I'd just like to move forward if we could. Diksun Rinpoche. And so then there's a debate that goes on. This is only one line in the entire commentary, by the way, that we're talking about right now. It's not a major pith of the emphasis of the text. Okay, Diksun Rinpoche. So there are some who don't understand and present this.
Sanatla dancing is a dose that Kajigo, Mishaba Kajige, Shana Ngobola Chabi, Sanat dancing is Logan dose that dancing in Durbane, Che Treatise, the nutritious is, dancing is Logium.
So there are some that think that this kind of type of attachment to being miserly, for instance, or miserliness would fall categorically under this grasping that we're speaking of here. And this is a mistaken view. We're not talking about a form of miserliness here when we speak of this grasping, this ignorance of the nature of reality. There are some that posit that miserliness would categorically fall under this.
Chenrezig rung kanle jamashi bishis. Shana ngobla chabi sana de danjin isana Teba Chimbi Juntan, Teba Chung Jung Saman Shev Mares, Kanle Jama Shebi Sheres,
The Donagar, minus Sumba, the
Shana Ngobala Chabi Sana Juro Sana.
Dela Dazin,
Sana Danzin said, Teba Chimbi Jung Sumudu, Teba Chung.
Ale, the Kanga Yomare. Okay, so then it goes on to say that when we look at the various texts, it says here, this grasping that's spoken of, saying that miserliness, isn't found in the great or the small texts. So Rinpoche said, great is referring to Mahayana, and small is referring to any of those hearers or solitary realizers texts. And he's saying that this text is saying that it is nowhere to be found in any of those. So it's mistaken because of this. Okay.
Jungwa Sumba, Tenzin Deba Jungwa Setting Zero. Jungwa Sumba on Yue Des. Tendila Tumu Tumu Maiba Niles. Tendila Tumu Tended the Tumu Maiba Tenija Ures. Tumu Tended Tumu Maiba Tenini. Tumu Maiba Tenini.
So there's two kinds of it says dependent origination, common and Tumo Mayimba, and uncommon dependent origination.
Tumo Mayimba Nile, Ranga Chashila Tene Truba ne, Tumu Tendi in Las, Ranga Chashila Tene Truba, Tumu Tendi Res, Ranga Chashila Tene Truba Tadanga to Kamba Shu Jete, and Kamba to Kamba Shu Jila Tene Trusa to Marbe. What does this one there?
Rinpoche, the
Rangi Chashi La, Tene Trubane, Tumu Tende Dance, Tumu Tende Jagures, Takante Dajila Temitende Redua, Dajila Temitende Dan, Jujil Temitende.
That's so. Ale, the Tumo dan Tumo Mayimba Dashin, Ale, the Ni, the Donda?
The Tumu Tende Che. Tā tūmū māyī bī tēndē nī mē dāng, tōpa tāng jē jābī, tūdū nē, tūmū māyī bī tēndē jī tūndē, dē lā tū tū dē chū jī shē nā mā ngōs. Tā mē dāng, tōpa tāng jē jābī, mē tā tāng tāng, tōpi tā tāng. Tobi Tazan Jabi Tudu de la Tumu Mami Tendi Jagres, Tumu Mami Tendi Tad, Tanju Medan.
Less so.
Tanju Jajin Yoba Mudwe.
Okay, this self will do.
Yeah.
So when we look at these two types of dependent origination, common and uncommon, we have the dependent origination of establishment and dependent origination of causes and conditions. So these would be common in terms of let me just make sure here. So in terms of a house, for instance, comings together of the parts, or a person imputed on any among the five aggregates. So the comings together of things that serve as a collection. So this dependent origination of establishment and then of causes and conditions. The one that is an uncommon dependent origination is the Madhyamika Prasangika view, where we have dependent origination which is through imputation, through nominal designation on a basis of designation. So this type of dependent origination is uncommon, where this naming, because it's only in the Prasangika view that things come into being by naming them, and no other way. The common is the causes and conditions, and then the Rinpoche, the Tomo Mayimba Lapsar, Tomo Dendel, the Nge Triwa Yure, the Dendel Ni Yure, Juchen,
Chashila ten the Truba Dajila Tempe Tendi Rabandua. Chashila ten the Truba, Tomu Tendi dance, Tanga to Jujela Tempe Tendi dance, Dajila Tempe Tendi Nisha Maria.
then Nika, Tomo Mayimba,
Dajila Tempe Tendi dance, Chashila Tempe Tendi, Jujela Tempe Tendi, and Chashil Dajila Tempe Tendi himself, Lausarota. Lausardul, the new Mosmoja Saro.
Yene Nge Triwa, the Daje dan, the Ale, Yene, the Daje, the Tomo Mayimba,
Tomu Mayimba,
the Tanjor Dawa, the Mingda.
Tanjo Rabudota.
Yene, the Daje Dendel Yomaribe, the Minda, Daje Dendel Yomaribe.
Dajila Tempe Tendi, the Ujirota. Tanjugu Dina, the Chashil Tempe Tendi, Chonota.
Okay, so I was just asking if I was saying that the dependent origination of causes and conditions and dependent origination of establishment. There's a dependent origination of establishment view lower than the Prasangika view that categorically would fall under this common, that the Prasangika would agree with, this collection coming together. It's the naming specifically which is uncommon. So I was asking Rinpoche, then it would be both categories would have this dependent origination of establishment, because it's just named, it has dependent origination of establishment is a little different in the Prasangika. It's more subtle. Okay, Diksan Rinpoche.
Medang to be that on you would the Jushin among us, that on the Omar Jubea. And Chukala to be Tazai, make it Tazai Lagre, Tanjuba Lagreta, Lagrewat, and Nalu Shagi now to go, Yanalu Chabaja Euro.
Ale, Ranjupa, Mingda, Lagodwe.
Now on Yabe, to be Pata, you want to be in Lagre.
Nika Yungu.
Rajuba Niga in Lagre.
Lesso.
Oma Tanjuage, Pata Bazamadu, you want to do them to Bayo.
Okay, so there's naming, just to clarify, there is nominal designation in the Middle Way Autonomy School as well, but it isn't the same type that is presented in the Prasangika school. The Middle Way Autonomy School posits that there is nominal designation, but there is also just as much participation of being suitably named from the side of the object being designated, whereas the Middle Way Consequence School says it's merely a designation on a collection, and that collection doesn't have any thatness already. It's just a name. So the Autonomy School says it requires both the name and the thing, that the thing has some thatness, I'm going to just call it that, and that the name come together, and then that's the dependent origination. The Prasangikas say there's nothing but collection here, and the name is what brings it in to being only, merely nominal designation on a basis of designation. That's it. But the basis of designation is much more important in terms of how it comes into being in the autonomy school. They feel the basis of designation has some whateverness. It's being named. It makes it suitable to be named as that. Not just suitable, but has to be almost. There's a symbiotic relationship between the subject and object, whereas there's only the naming in the Prasangika. So, yeah, that's it, exactly. Digsum. So once you understand dependent origination, you're able to get rid of attachment, hatred, and ignorance. Who said this?
네 말이 가봐 줘 봐. 특권한 말이 봤다.
Less so.
렌데 가봐 렌데 뽕바데 더 가려서나 시비드니 공부 시비드니 공부 오스 춘노 대바만 루바 시비 돈이 두비 싫어지 돈이 특권한 공부를 되네. 네 어디 춘노 대바주바지 대진 가도 도는 그래스 타바 주마이메 시소나 준디질로 도는 거 와스 드나지레스 어디 손 말베 또아시르 마리가바 조아네스 특권한이라 뭐 마리바다 렌데르 뭐 마리바가바 조아네 주강라 되는 가버스나 시비 되는 공부하고스 땡데 이미 주선 추노 대부마 루비 시비 돈이 두비 싫어지 특권한이 공부 돈이 공부를 되네 네 주노 대바주바지 된지도 가는 그래스 타바 주마 이미 시소나 준디질로 가는 거 어떤다 그래스 셰다사 뜻이 주잖아.
Okay. Now, we have a quote again from Nagarjuna's Root Wisdom text, where it says that the cessation of ignorance occurs through exercising wisdom and meditating on this. This is referring to dependent origination. So by meditating upon dependent origination, one is able to eventually arrive at cessation of ignorance. So the way that it occurs is by meditating upon emptiness, by meditating upon the lack of true establishment of phenomena, one then arrives at the understanding that phenomena is not truly established. All phenomena are not truly established. In the same way that one realizes that if he or she mistakes a rope for a snake and then realizes that it is a rope, that cognition or realization of it as a rope gets rid of the mistaken view that it's a snake and every emotion and such that occurs or happens when one mistakes it for a snake. Likewise, once one gets rid of this mistaken view that sees phenomena as being truly established, then what it creates is then negated as well. So once one gets rid of the grasping at true establishment, since it is the root of ignorance, it is the root of the afflictions, then all of that which is caused by it disappear and are eradicated. So ignorance is eradicated once ignorance is eradicated, then that which comes from it is eradicated too. So the cessation of ignorance occurs through exercising wisdom and meditating on this. And so meditating on dependent origination. And the reason that we say things are not truly established is because of dependent origination. Digsung Rinpoche.
Tad badnen dawa tiba oman juba ya. Tishi tenju tiba di ne tangan dawa tada juba shes. Tangan dawa tada juba shes ombi sos. Tishi tenju tiba di ne chuna chu deba madu tendi imbe esher. Deba du jida duma karo madu be esher. Tajil me je esher. Tangan da mu buka yoro. Tangan da ne tendi duwa de ne duni juba tag jabu res jabu. So
we say that dependent origination is the king of reasoning, or the king of reason. And we can use so many things. Things are not truly established because they dependently originate. They do not dependently originate as one or other, or both, or neither. So we can use so many reasons to show this truth. But the king of reasoning is said to be dependent origination.
Oje 대신 tenjude bandi ne tanga dawata da juba shes ta chuna deba maru tende ime ta andala tende deba maru shesuna tela tende wode lu tu mo bangano gres.
So once you understand that all phenomena are not truly established and arrive at this, then many mistaken views disappear along with this understanding.
Ludu no dembi keba yi, tenjin de banjong tubi landeni, ngomo ludu ji, dembi ne tang hibo, tatu ni do chui jitabu kundu, chuba manju de jogres,
Yeah.
dembi hibo, kundu chuba joros, dembi hibo tuba jita kundu chumin jorosaya tenbare, jita kundu chumin jorosaya. tenjin de banjong yu lang, chue ji nebi nenye du jeta kundu chumin jorosaya, duwa tenye duwa. Ane, juzen tata yu na ludu no tenba, shiro no tenbi keba yi, tenjin de banjong yu, tuyan tubi lang tenye, tendi yinbi juzen chu no tenba marubu tubi lang tenye, ngomu ludu ji, ngombu chue ji, tenbi ne dans, ngombu ta shaja tuba, shaja munbu dagi, tenbi ne dans, hibu resi, hibu ta tuba nido, chu jitabu kundu, chuba majudu, chuban ju naga resi, keba ina wade, tunyi tubi lang de, shaja tubi, tenbi hibu inba de, keba ina kundu chu gare, ngabadu kundu chu naga resi, kundu chuba majudu, chuba naga resi. Deyang, kodewa shena, ta kodeba shena nda resi ta, shela shela, de jing shela, meshe mayenga jue ne, dudun la, sheba pamba jen de, tenda jen la yang jaros, ta dewa de, chöji nebi nenyi jita kundu chuminu saya dewa, ane, shilhaa jila ngay shega mayasi laosung na, ane wata ku sheba tu kogara was, tendrabu jabu kogres. Chöji tsamu nyemu sema zasa na, muku jaba shirare, ane ku nyemi ko kalasa kuwa marisi la na, tsemu sa kalasa wata kogara wata, tendrabu resi ta mayiga.
Good guy, Drabagu.
Mayiga rawat, mayiga se lawo rota. Chita kundu tenbi, choji tenbi, tenji reban junyo la, choji tenbi nenye de chita kundu chumin joru chugare, shegare es, keba ina, ludan tenbi keba yi, tenji reban junyo tubi lan tenyi, shaja tuba ngombu choji, tenbi nen tang, himbo tatu nye do, chu chita, kundu chuba manjudu chuban jogres. Tebi himbu kundu chuban joros. Chujin samu nyema sema sana, anu ku sema seza ogoro. Chuba manju sondu chuba du gogores. Chujin samu nyema sema sana, seza du gogoro wata. Ne tendi yimi juzen chuna deba maruba tuba na teni, shaja tubi tembi ne nido kundu chuba manju sondu chuba gogores. Chujin samu nyema sema sana, sema seza du gogoro. What turned up as my garden, sit the water and
So this dependent origination, which is spoken of, the cessation of ignorance occurs through exercising wisdom and meditating on this. And then we find the quote so that's from the root wisdom text. And then we find the quote from Chandrakirti's Entrance to the Middle Way that talks about all faults and afflictions come from the view of the transitory collection. And perceiving that these faults cause this, the yogi meditates. I'll give you the exact quote. Perceiving that all faults and all afflictions flow from the idea of the transitory composite, and knowing that it is the focus, is the very self. This self is what the yogi will disprove. So we find these 2 points being made and over in other texts as well. And we state that these dependent origination is the king of reasoning. And it says that all the scholars would agree, whether we're speaking of Nagarjuna or in Chandrakirti's texts, that really dependent origination is the essence or the heart of the Buddha's teachings, of Buddha Shakya Muni's teaching, and that using these signs and reasoning is how we will establish this, and how we establish this is by looking at the presentation of syllogisms and so forth, and then the way we arrive at it is similar to the story of the man who is quite obese but doesn't eat during the day at all. So one must arrive at the fact that he must eat at night if he isn't eating during the day because he's obese. Likewise, when we look at formulas for dependent origination, we prove them by using these signs. And the king of signs, as far as proving emptiness or proving the nature of reality, is dependent origination. The Diksum got karma gatsi.
그래도 그자가네. 야. 오야 다들 어디 네. 다들 맞다 정도와 토모도 토모 많이 비 땡디 두빌랑 라데 데비 히부이 데스 토모도 토모 많이 빌랑 네 라데 데비 히부이 데 So
it says that all of those common and uncommon all of those common and uncommon pathways habit the essence, the dependent origination. And then there's a quote from Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. I just found this. So here in the letter to a friend, I lost my place in it, but it talks about being the king, dependent origination, being the king of reasons. It's basically what it says. That dependent origination is the king of reasons, king of unsurpassed reasons. I don't know why I didn't mark it. Anyway, I'm sure I'll find it. I think we're ending here also, but I just want to see. Yes, but I do have to get going. That's why we're ending a little early, I think.
Just like really quick.
Okay.
Hey, show, great. I was just wondering if there was more than one method to realizing emptiness.
The Doni Dopi Sherab, the top cheek yure, top mambo yure. Doni Dopi Sherab. Guna? Top cheek, top mambo.
Doni Dopi Sherab, Doni Dopi Sherab, Oma Tanyu Doni Dopi Sherab, Najubi Doni Dopi Sherab, Sansambi Doni Dopi Sherab, Wadini Mamujayo, Chuta Mamajila, Wadi Chara Mamujayo.
Lessa.
That Tanyu Doni Dopi Sherab, what is a few days.
So when we look at emptiness, there are many different emptinesses according to the different schools. So there's a realization of emptiness of the Prasangika, the autonomy, the mind only, two divisions of mind only, the two divisions of the Sutra school, the 18 divisions of the Vabhashika school. So there are many different realizations of emptiness that are presented. But this is the only presentation or method of emptiness in the Prasangika school. You were acting more of methods, and I asked the word method, but really the method is using this analysis, these reasons. Yeah, things are not truly established because they dependently originate. So using analysis is the meditation.
And the only confusion I had was the 3 higher trainings. Like the last one was concentration, wisdom. So like you focus on an object, and then wisdom arises from that. Or to realize, isn't that like what school does that fall under?
I mean, it would mean the same thing. All schools would have their own interpretation of the training in wisdom. Concentration is the focus, and the wisdom is the object you're focusing on.
Okay.
다 수수 간데 산던 가데 내가 거를 텐데 임베 산던네 안 어때 뿌드뿌나 존예진스 어떤데 산는 뭐 못한다 갈래갈래 드는 생각을 코 자체 띵서로 용거리스다.
So if we can think about it in terms of ourselves, am I dependently originate? Do I dependently originate? How does this occur? Is it like a mirror where, is this process of my origination like a mirror or a reflection? And when you start to think in terms of this, then you'll begin to understand it more and more. But it's a process of understanding it little by little.
저 라다기 인치다 안에 소다쟁아 또 라달자 그걸 산는 몸에 떠나 마도 시에 말어.
So it's just like in school, where you take English, for instance, and study it. If you don't think about it over and over again, you won't learn it. So you have to do it the same in this. Decent. Okay. So we'll end here in concluding mandal offering and dedication prayer. If we can just do that end right away, and then I can't leave actually till Rinpoche leaves anyway. So.
What the initial called garbage television.
Gare.
Garbage.
Khensur copy the Tsawa. Khensur copy yure.
Reba.
The Becha copy go?
Reba.
The Delpa, the Gen Lobsang Jatso Delpa?
Reba, yes.
Okay. Rinpoche wants us to make copies. Why don't the Ngatsu Nyogu? Copy cheaper. Copy jana. Can you copy this here? He's saying copy the whole book. I'm saying it's going to cost more to copy the book than to buy a book. We can buy these online. Rinpoche wants everyone to have a copy of Geshe Lharampa Jatso's text, one way or another. You can just... Ngatsu mambo nyogore. The karma, the gomo, arigomo chik, arigomo ni. Kapija, shugu chik, pesa ju. How much does it cost to copy our prayer book? He thinks copying's free. How much does our prayer book cost to copy? $10? The ngatsu, the kandun becha, arigomo ju, kapija. The becha nyo, arigomo ni, arigomo sum. The nyo yargadu. Kibare. Okay.
Same number of pages.
Okay. Yeah, so the kapija arigomo ju, ted segudu. The nyo, gomo sum, gomo ni. The computer nyo. Then sani nani yongore. Okay, we're going to order them.
It's a couple of bucks.
Yeah, I told him they're $2 or $3 online. We can order used books off of them. We'll order 10 of them.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll look.
The datayin segadu. Okay, we're ordering. Okay, concluding mandal offering and dedication prayer. Yeah, so I think sometimes things just happen here and there isn't an idea that it actually costs money or that, you know what I mean? He thinks maybe we go to the library and can make free copies.
Easy. I can make a copy so we make a copy.
Let's just have the book, because then people can take the book home. They don't have all these papers they throw on the ground and lose. Then they have a book. It's better. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drakpa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land, surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rinpoche, Gutsi Shapi Denra.
I can collect 50 pages, I can make it $5.
Yeah, it's real easy. Let's just order them, and people will have the book.
Check out Amazon.
It's just so much better.